Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward. Chapter 90. Kayana felt the heat, a dry heat that pushed out all other thought. She closed her eyes for a moment. She was so tired now. The silent landscape stretched out before her in all directions. It was a cloudless sky. The clouds had all burned off as the powerful sun rose high into the sky. The azure never failed to bring a grin to her face. It was a perfect, endless stretch. There was no death that waited in that empty field of blue. Nothing like there was down here on the ground. She bent her head and could feel her energy draining away. It was peaceful, silent, like an enormous cavernous tomb. She had dozed for a short while after Irna had begun the slow process of piecing herself back together. It wouldn't end, of course. No need to tell the woman what she had already guessed. Life was struggle, but there was a beauty to it, an earnestness. She thought of her people, blown to specks. So far were they removed from her. Far into the deep reaches, past the desert's edge, eastward for hundreds of miles, a place she was no longer welcome. Einshan, her promised, had turned his back on her. That had been the hardest blow. She had hoped he would see past all reason and understand why she had to experience life outside their civilization. She did not want to give over her life to becoming a guardian, watching the backs of the scribes as they searched out in the great library. Her life would no longer be her own, until she was ground to dust and beyond. She rejected the chains of tradition. She wanted more of life from this world. She had wayward blood in her veins. To quench her desires, she must travel and see the greatness and bounty of nature all around her. In the whisper of a baby's cry, in the slow build of anger in a man wronged, in the perfection of a distant sunrise, she wanted it all, but the loss of Einshan hurt. He had grown up with her, always a gentle voice. Soft-spoken and strong-willed, he was a true philosopher, and she had loved him for it. He understood so many things about her. Why could he have not seen the strongest desire she had of all, the desire to live free? She would answer to none, although she had greatly valued his counsel in times of strife, while she grew and shaped herself as a prodigy among their people. Her martial talents far exceeded the expectations of her teachers. Her talent had appeared out of nowhere, an enigma to the great masters. No man or woman in her line had produced such a talent in 20 generations. Some had spoken in low tones that she had been a foundling, a changeling child brought to wreak havoc amongst them. The rumors began softly at first, but gained in strength as she rose through the rankings, unaided by her teachers. The outrage proud families held when she surpassed their offspring led to hate and division. It seemed the growing faction wanted to be rid of her. They prayed an unfortunate accident would befall her. Their people held physical violence as the weakest and most base of failings, so none would openly stand against her. But the envy, jealousy, and bitter words of hate continued unabated. Through it all, Einshan was there, standing with her openly, exposing his own name to the ire of the many. He stood at her back. He would not turn against her, until she chose to leave. There was great honor in taking on the mantle of a guardian. All words of spite would fall silent with her step towards this most honored role. She would no longer be seen as a threat. She had made her mind up. She knew within her that she would not give over. She held great sadness for her people. She wished they could see the benefit of merging with other cultures, embracing the new, and turning aside petty myths that had held them in the thrall for thousands of years. The prophet had commanded their will at the dawn of time as they knew it. They were fervent to serve. All other thought was anathema. The wagon bumped over an uneven tread of sand and dirt. A thin trail had been beaten down, packed hard into the earth. It looped around the rolling hills of rock and sand that lay far off to the west. Irna was with the children at the moment. Kayana hadn't braved the conversation yet. She hoped the woman knew of the lands beyond the low hills. She hoped they led towards another town. Surely it did. The question was, how far? Kayana studied her rugged palms. They were sore and bruised from where she had braced herself after being launched into the air when the caravan had come crashing down more than a day ago. She remembered the warmth of Kellen's hand as he had pulled her up. For a moment, she had felt the burden lift, part of it disappearing from her shoulders. He had given her hope when it had all but gone. Without him, they would not have survived. She nodded her head, silently thinking of their brief time together. He had been a good man. She had a debt to pay to Irna. Kellen had made his own choices. She wished she could have known more of the man he had been. Resolute, she would do what she could for his wife and children. But she felt spread thin to breaking over the prospect of watching their backs. Kayana could not turn the woman out, nor the children. She was so tired. She took out a small wood carving and found the small knife among the cookware. Chipping away at it bolstered her reserves and let her slip from moment to moment in a serene state, half-conscious. She watched the horizon without really seeing. She would register movement, but not much else. It was all she could do. She would teach Millie some of the basic poses once they found a city where they could resupply. Perhaps they could barter for passage on a larger caravan that was headed out towards the far coast. Kayana grimaced at their lack of funds. Maybe she could sell the heavy bronze blade that hung at her side. Perhaps it would be enough. Perhaps. Too many worries, too many chances. Kayana turned towards the wagon covering behind the driver's cart. Moving aside the drape with a hand, she beckoned to Irna. "Do you know where the next town is? I'm hoping there will be another way. There will be another one this way." She pointed out towards the east along their path. "Do you know how to find the next town?" A pleading tone entered her voice. She tried to hold back the desperation, but surely the woman would want the same thing. I know where it lies." Irna sat still, gently bobbing to the sway of the saddle in the wind. She did not volunteer further information. Her eyes held a feral cast, and Kayana felt an unease come over her as she waited for the woman to respond. "Will you tell us, Irna?" Kayana spoke clearly but without emotion, hoping not to rile the other woman. She wanted to minimize any promise the woman might try to wring out of her or Millie. She held her face still, waiting to react. "Aye." The woman halted, teasingly coy. Wary of the game, Kayana attempted to simply rush through it. "What do you want, Irna?" Kayana kept her voice neutral, no more weight given to any word over another. "What I want?" the woman sighed, taking a long, slow breath. "You know what I want," the woman said bluntly. "Say it. Say you will care for my children should I pass from this world. Say it." Kayana looked away. She felt great sadness for the woman, but she was not a mother. She felt the tethers laying claim to her the longer she remained silent. She could not take on this burden. The faces of the children broke her heart, but she could not give up her dream. She wavered. Say it. Say you will take care for them. Care for us until one day I'm no longer there. My greatest fear is that I will leave them alone in this world, with nothing and no one to protect them. I will do anything, to stay that day from arriving. You owe me your life, twice paid. Once for my husband that sheltered you, once again for the wounds I healed. I demand payment. No. The word hung there, unwavering on the wind. You do not own me. I am grateful for your help, but you will not chain me to you. Kayana fought to meet the other woman's eyes. She spoke on in a torrent. If I choose to help you, it will be by my choice. But I will not be chained to you, now or ever. If I choose to protect your children, it will be by my word. Freely given. You cannot bind me to you.